Hey there, Nomads of Lore. I'm Sean.
And I'm Jonathan.
And together we are Mead and Mischief, your home away from no home. And this video is going to be our review of Jallikattu. If you haven't, that's better. If you are new to our channel, then you may not know that for the past month or so-ish, we have kind of been experimenting and dipping our toe into other, basically non-English, foreign to us.
And I don't know about him, but I have more than one toe. He only has one toe.
I only want just one toe into other nations' cinema, and we both have experienced some stuff before. We watched like Hong Kong stuff, kung fu type movies, and all that kind of stuff. We've experienced some of that before, and we've experienced
some
anime stuff. So we've it's not like we're we've only looked at sort of American cinema and Hollywood, and that's it, but. One of our regular commenters who has been watching some of our Wheel of Time content and commenting about the Wheel of Time content suggested we watch Minal Murali, and which we watched, and we watched that. We knew that it was an Indian film, and we knew that it was superhero. We didn't know, little did we know the depth and complexity and huge scope of Indian cinema. We didn't know that there were several different Indian cinema traditions and houses, whatever the right word for that is. We've been introduced to words we never heard before. We didn't know that we knew that there were a lot of languages spoken in India. We didn't know that Malayalam was one of them. We didn't, and I haven't looked up pronunciation on this one, but we didn't know Telugu was one. We knew Hindi was a language, of course, but we didn't know that all these different regions had all of these different languages, and so we've reacted to a little bit of things. We have one actually that's kind of in our list of things that we're going to watch. We may watch a trailer about and put out a video on it soonish, who knows, that is Hindi, and then we reacted to a trailer that is, again, probably butchering the pronunciation because I didn't look it up, but Telugu. Is hopefully close enough that y'all will at least know what I'm talking about. And so we've experienced some of that, but we really, really like some of the ideas that we've learned a little bit about as far as Malayalam cinema and kind of the small budget and character focused and that kind of thing. Story driven. And if you don't know about our channel, we mostly do things in science fiction and in fantasy genres, and we really are interested in culture and especially mythology and historical cultures, or in sort of their legends and all of those things. And so we've been trying to find films and TV shows and things that which specifically we're wanting to do more Malayalam things, especially because we kind of fell in love with that when our first look, and that's kind of what we're doing, and it's hard to do that. And there's another film that we've had a hard time watching. I can't remember what it's called, and I'll butcher it enough that y'all probably won't even know what I'm talking about, but. This film, Jallikattu, that we're reviewing in this video is, if my understanding is correct, is directed by the same director as that one. And watching the trailer before we watched this, it kind of looked like it might have more elements like that. After watching the film, it doesn't have as many mythological elements as what we were hoping. But the film was really interesting. Jonathan and I have both watched it, and it's got some really interesting storytelling things and some interesting cinematography things. And because we watched it and we did really enjoy it overall, we thought we would go ahead and put a review out for it. So we're going to start this video with kind of a spoiler-free thoughts. If you haven't watched it, whether what we think about it and basically our review, whether it's good, bad, or whatever, whether you should check it out. And then, especially because of the themes and all the stuff that happened up until the end of this film, we're going to also include a spoiler-filled section where we review the entire film. So let's dive in. What were your overall impressions and kind of general thoughts about this film?
So I went in kind of blind. I knew it was about an animal of some sort. And anyway,
I told him, hey, let's watch this.
Yeah. I was like, okay, let's go for it. So got into it, and the intro was very intense, I guess, to say the least. The whole movie is very intense. It's very, very quick cut, kind of shaky cam footage kind of video that's very intense and very. I keep saying intense. That's not the word I'm looking for.
Intense is a
jarring
decent word.
and very off-putting almost.
Intentionally,
not
so I think
off-putting in a bad way, but just off-putting in a bad way, but off-putting in a way that makes you feel just a little, on edge or uncomfortable, or your stomach's kind of a little bit in knots, that kind of thing. Anyway, the film, as it progressed, I was like, okay, I'm starting to get into this, and there was some lots of elements that definitely made me realize that it was not just about about a bull that they're trying to catch. There's a lot more implications as far as culture and humans and beasts and all that kind of stuff. And we can definitely get in more into that in our spoiler field, because the ending kind of is the big thing that lets you know what's going on. But anyway, I liked it. I was not sure if I was going to like it until pretty much right up until the end, I would have to say, because I was very on the fence about it. But anyway, what about you?
So it's kind of one of those films that is really kind of up my alley in general. I like, and this isn't really mind bendy. That's not really the right word, but films that make you think and present ideas. I tend to be a very character focused watcher / reader, and an idea focused watcher / reader. The characters in this, that they weren't as strong, I think, as in some other things, but the ideas were super strong, and the cinematography was incredible. I mean, Jonathan, and Jonathan completely agrees. So I want to make the point very clear that there were several things that in this film that made you uncomfortable and were off-putting, and I think intentionally so. They were shot very much that way, from the sound design to some of the cuts, to some of the visuals that we see in here. There's in some of this, it almost goes back to classic Greek sort of elements of man versus man and man versus nature ideas. And then there's also, and then there's several layers of depth and ideas that are presented, some of which that I don't think you fully realize. You kind of get hints and ideas earlier in the film, but then really drives you home with some of that stuff in the end, and really just kind of it fully frames some of the stuff that you were feeling and thinking early in the film, and it really kind of sets you up for a huge kind of gut punch and eyes wide sort of feeling at the end. And so I really like it. Again, it's not as mythological or fantasy or sci-fi as what we tend to do, but for what it was, I really like it. I think it's it's really intense, and like Jonathan said, and was struggling to get out of that word choice even, because and it's intense enough, and it's violent. It's not gory violent, but it's in here violent. You feel enough that I don't. There's some people that I think it would be too much for even, and it would be. And so if you're very, and it's hard to, without giving away spoilers, it's hard to even explain sensitive about what, but if you tend to get really wrapped up emotionally in films, they really affect you super deeply, then it might be too much for you. And so in this spoiler, I want to make sure to say that in this spoiler free portion,
it's almost the same way. I keep thinking, the only thing I can really compare it to that I keep thinking back on is early on in my viewing days of intense movies was Saving Private Ryan. And it's not the gory portion of Saving Private Ryan. It's the off kilter portion where you're like, your stomach's in knots just because of what's going on and the implications of all that's happening and the people dying and the all of that, and there's not as much.
The people dying in Saving Private Ryan.
Yes,
right?
yes, and anyway, so that's kind of what I tie it to. It's not as it's not as gory, it's not as whatever, but it's a lot. Anyway, so I definitely enjoyed it though, for sure. It is it's a movie that you can think about for a long time. There's even a small little I don't know if it's a love triangle, I guess, going on in there. There's a couple of there's a couple of different
some people that are making bad choices, and I think that's part of the point of it. That people the people in this film overall, I don't know that there's very many people in this film that are meant to be seen as the good guy. In this film,
well, there's absolutely no empathy shown in a lot of the interactions. There's very little empathy. There's very little. There's a lot of selfishness.
Yeah.
There's a lot of implications of all these different it's almost like taking a point like selfishness and going to the nth degree. What happens if you're selfish for a long time, or what happens if you have no empathy for those around you, and it kind of plays on those very specific things. Anyway, before we go into our spoiler-filled portion at the end, I think there's a few questions that we have culturally that we want to ask you guys, and definitely put it down in the comments so we can know what's going on. Go ahead, Sean.
So especially in the beginning of the film, this is not really the point of the film. So this is honestly just to help us understand what's going on culturally in this. Especially some of the things around the meat market, what we would call the butchers, I guess. And if there's ever anything that we're saying that you might be confused about what we're talking about, I think sometimes there's language barrier issues. I think sometimes we say
Definitely.
one thing in comments and whatever else. Don't be afraid to ask for clarification or whatever else.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I can tell you right now, y'all don't know us, but you can assume that we're trying our best to stay open-minded and happy and want to enjoy and be respectful of all the things. So that, hopefully you'll see that as we continue. But I don't know how the butchers work in your country. Maybe even maybe it's regional. I don't know, because there were a few different elements. It seemed like to me that what I understood was that there was basically licensed and basically an illegal meat butcher market maybe happening,
or just specifically a butcher,
maybe just one that. And so is that something that you have to have certification for, a license for? And it seems to me, I have basically no full understanding of different cultures. I know that eating meat and not eating meat are different at different parts of, in different areas and different religions, whatever else. And so the interactions with the police officer in particular were a little bit confusing to me, and just understanding what, because it seemed like for a minute it was almost like he was talking about and that the bulls were like endangered or restricted, and because he was getting on to him about if it's a wild bull that they were getting, then there was something was going on there, and then that's just what goes on with what was going on in the film with the butchers and the people the beginning part, I guess, was more to show day-to-day routine of the chopping, and whatever
repetition.
Else. Yeah, the repetition. I think that was more the point than the specific butchering of the animals. I also didn't understand why it looked like there were bags of meat in a tree at one point.
I was going to ask that. Does that have to do with? Is that a festival? Religious thing, or is that the festival, the Jallikattu festival, where the meat was hanging in the bags on the tree? It kind of almost seemed a little religious. I don't know. It may just be the festival. Yeah, kind of help us understand some of that for sure.
I don't think there were any other big questions. Most of the film, I think a lot of the film you could understand. Like, I probably could have understood a lot of the film even without understanding the language at all with no subtitles, because it's so atmospheric and whatever else. And as to that, I think probably we can jump into the spoiler-filled territory.
If you're wondering where to watch it, you can watch it on Amazon Prime.
In the States.
In the States, yep. So anyway, if you haven't watched it and want to watch it, there's a place to watch it. So spoiler-filled.
Yeah.
We'll start there, giving you enough time to get out of here, and the ending is... Okay, so the ending was intense.
It was, to say the
least. Be stuck on that word. I loved the... I thought it was very funny, but it also crazy the way they caught the bull they didn't catch him. He fell into the well, and then they let him go. I thought that was like so comical. Accidentally. Yeah, you could just see it coming a mile off. Though. I was like, why are you raising him up like that? You got to kill him before he gets loose again. Anyway, but I thought it was interesting that I can't remember the guy's name. He was the butcher.
I had a real hard time keeping the names because there were a few names that were really similar.
Varga or whatever his name. He was at the tree, and the guy came up to him and said, "Aren't you going to help catch your bull?" And he was like, "Oh, there's plenty of people over there."
The butcher that
had it was just that whole thing I was talking about a little bit ago, the selfishness and the internalized like all about me thing was so heavy on so many characters. It was just like it was crazy. It was a very interesting look.
Basically the humans all that was one of the themes and ideas, right? That humans, and if pushed and pinned down, they're animals essentially.
Yeah.
The man versus nature kind of idea,
man versus beast,
beast, whatever. It was so and it was laid out both subtly and heavy-handed. It was just and in so many different ways. I've talked a little bit about some of the sound, the sound engineering in this film, both the music and the sound effects was just, and the music that. I don't know if I would call music. There were several of the, that were melodic, but not.
Oh yeah, that were more sound effects. Yeah. They were music. They're just trying to almost kind of like Batman, the Joker, Batman sound from The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight, that. The cello sound that they made in The Dark Knight, which was two notes going back and forth or played at the same time or something. That was so off-putting. It was very similar to that. Yeah. I think that's a lot of what they were doing at the beginning, showing the daily meat market thing, but they were also setting up that almost clock tick that is very unsettling, and that kind of started the whole ball rolling of everything seemed to just speed up. Oh, it was crazy. The way that they laid out the theme of man versus man was incredible. The basically when pushed to extremes, men will do anything against any like that. There's very little care about the people around them when everything's been stripped from them, in a sense.
So to kind of summarize some of the main themes as we understand them, and if there's some stuff we're missing, make sure and let us know, because I feel like this is one of those films that you could probably watch 30 times and continue to get
new stuff out of it. Because
there's so much. But some of the main themes as we're seeing them is really the fallibility of man, right? Because we keep there's not a whole lot of big plot in this film. The plot is we're trying to get this bull, thing, right? But it's not about the plot. Really, one of the biggest things that we keep cutting to, as Jonathan was talking about earlier, there's all this cuts happening, is that we're seeing a whole bunch of
vignettes.
Awful people. I mean, and that's maybe too harsh a word. Not maybe it is. But we see an affair happening. We see
fallible people.
Fallible, exactly. People that are making poor choices.
Yeah.
People. We see the father that's making mistakes and having a hard time providing for his family and and all that kind of stuff. I think was maybe the point of that. Scene with the guy. I think he was trying to get beef for the fest. That's what I understood. Again, there may be some cultural things that I'm not understanding. But and then we've got pride, we've got gluttony, we've got negligence on the part of some of these people. And we've got literal burning of police vehicles and just lots of different. I mean, that's probably only half or less of all the different things that are in there, showing that men are fallible and that and especially when put in poor situations or pushed against the wall or whatever else, men are fallible and they make poor choices and all of that kind of thing. And that's one of the biggest themes in there. And then, of course, we also get the theme, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, especially with our three ending things, of upholding nature. And we kind of get that scene with the what I would call kind of an elder, and by an elder just an older gentleman in the of the village, and him kind of telling stories about the old days and what it used to be like, and whatever else, and kind of the looking back to that, and looking back to living off the land, and living in harmony with nature, and all of that kind of stuff, and so the smashing of those two ideas is where we kind of get these three scenes that we kind of want to talk about as we close out this review.
So we got three scenes. The first one being the pile of men on top of the bull at the end. The second one being the old man and his vision scene, or dream scene, whatever it is that he's having.
Ambiguous, unintentionally, I'm sure.
And then the third one being the cavemen kind of looking back in the history glass just to see what the exact same thing has happened in the past, kind of thing. So yeah, the men piling on top of each other and suffocating each other in mud, and specifically suffocating the animal, but also kind of killing each other in the mud.
It's hard to tell.
There was a lot going on there. Yeah. I did not see that coming. I knew it was going to be an interesting ending, and I thought there was going to be some death. I knew that Varkey and
Varkey is the butcher, right?
No, not Varkey. Yeah, it's the other guy. The other two, the two men that worked with Varkey, that one of them backstabbed the other one and got him sent out of the village or whatever.
Right.
Those two guys, I knew that there was going to kind of be a showdown, and that is what kind of happened. One of them, they
in that
started
same
fighting.
Pool that we saw at the beginning of the film, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Same little stream or whatever.
And so they died, but then one of them died, and then there's the pile, and it was crazy. I was not expecting it. Were you expecting anything like that?
Well, they had in the. I don't know if you watched the trailer before you watched the film, but there's in the trailer that they kind of show a really small moment of what looks like a dude getting piled in mud and whatever, and they cut it in the trailer with the line that the hunter guy, I can't remember what his name is, but the guy with the big rifle and whatever, the big flintlock rifle, he his line of men taste really good, or whatever, that sort of cannibalistic line. We don't see anything like that in the like the actual act of doing anything like that, but they cut it with that line, and so that was actually one thing that in the trailer I was like, oh, okay, maybe we've got some interesting religious cannibalistic weirdness, which of course, because they cut it that way in the trailer, right? So I didn't. So when I heard that line and then there wasn't anything, I was like, okay, well, this is clearly not that, and whatever else. So I don't know what I expected. I was definitely not expecting the pile of bodies and whatever else. It was a visceral scene. Yeah. It was my favorite part of that scene, and it was brilliant because it was very on the nose and very it was very, very clear, very pounding the point into your head. But the thing that in a way was subtle, but was, even though it was very loud in your face, was the animal sound effects with this thing, and basically men being like beasts and whatever else, and we get the monkeys and the lions and those sounds with that cut in there.
It was surreal.
Yeah,
if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. It was like, is this really could this happen? Is this like a dream thing? What's going on? Like, right. It was so intense. Yeah, It was. Yes, the sound and everything that led up to that moment, and the I guess, was there a lightning storm going on with that one too, or was that just when
I don't remember a lightning storm.
I can't remember. I just remember it being Anyway, and then so the next sequence we have the old man. I loved the juxtaposition of the old man having a hard time breathing at the same time that the one guy's at the bottom of the pile. Having a hard time trying to get out, having a hard time breathing, inhaling mud almost in a sense. But anyway, when he pulls himself up and then he has the beautiful vision of the bull,
the dream bull, essentially
sitting in a pretty jungle somewhere, just being himself and not worried about all these men going nuts around him.
Well, and I think that's that was a very ambiguous scene, and I think intentionally so. There, it is kind of enigmatic, right? But I do think that was the point, as far as I could tell, was this beautiful, surreal nature. and it harmonious scene of it. What could be. I don't know that it would be a correct interpretation, but what could be interpreted as this old man's dying breath.
Yeah.
Of kind of almost going into the afterlife and harmony with whatever there's I could see that taking that interpretation. I think that scene is open for a lot of interpretation. But that juxtaposed with cutting back to this chaotic, horrific pile of bodies with this sound and visuals and all the things happening there was really, really crazy.
And then we get our Wheel of Time moment where wheel is a time. Time
right.
is a wheel.
Yep. And we go back in time, presumably, or way forward.
The men are doing it all over again. Yeah, killing each other over the bull.
Yeah, trying to get meat and trying to get food. I guess is that the interpretation there, where at least one of them. Yeah. But yeah, this was a crazy film, and I really liked it a lot. It's one that I think I would like to see again, honestly, because it's like I say, there's so many layers of depth there. But it's really, really good. If you guys know of any other Indian cinema, especially Malayalam cinema, now it's tricky sometimes to be able to get access to it in the States. That one that we'd like to watch at some point is hard for us to access, and I think there's some others that are difficult to access. But Indian cinema in general, there's a TV show that we may check out that I think we can access on Netflix and whatever else that's I think Hindi. But if you know of other things that fit some mythological elements or fantasy or science fiction or things like that, we would love to know about those. We do appreciate all the comments of all the different things. We see those and we're kind of looking at those, and we've got to kind of decide what things to watch and what things to
got a
put
list
our time
about 100
into.
miles long, and we've only got so much time. But we thank you very much for your support. And thank you for your views, and I hope you're loving us, our interesting journey into our good journey into Indian cinema. And if you want to support us, there's links down in the description. They're Amazon affiliate links. You can check those out. So if you want to join in on the conversation surrounding Indian cinema with us and some of the other people, we've got a Discord server where we've got some channels kind of where everything's separated out based on the content that we do, Wheel of Time. We've got some Malayalam channels. We'll probably expand that a little bit so we have a little bit more there and other things. So if you want to join in on that, there's a link also in the description for that. Like, comment, subscribe, all the things. Ring the bell. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye-bye.